Welcome to Umbrella Rebellion. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Dee.
We are finding healing after leaving a cult.
We will be discussing abuse and personal experience with the ATI, IBLP, and fundamental churches.
Trigger warning. This podcast may contain descriptions of various forms of abuse. Please take care for your safety and well-being while you are listening.
If the content becomes too much for you to handle, please turn this off. We hope to expose harmful teachings that lead to and justify abuse,
with the hope that those that are experiencing abuse can find support and escape from it.
Welcome to Umbrella Rebellion. Hey, Marcy.
Hi, Dee.
Hey, everybody. We are continuing our mental health series. We are together for another day of bulk recording.
So we've talked about the emotional abuse, the spiritual abuse, financial.
We wanted to talk about how these types of abuse can correlate with a cult environment and how you can identify if you might possibly be in a cult. So again, we're reading off of documentation. We may add in some personal experiences since we were in a cult and how we recognized it. And so I will put links to the resources that we found this on in the description below, and you can do more of your own research and ascertain whether you're in the right kind of group.
So when you're coming out of a cult, you may realize that something's not right, but it is hard to see their tactics of abuse while you're in it. It's easier to see it when you come out of it or have had a chance to step away a little bit. I saw it as I started questioning it, but I wasn't willing to call it a cult until many months after.
Yeah.
And I really didn't even know how to assess if it was. I knew it was wrong. I felt like it was a cult, but I didn't know how you would tell if it was a cult or not. Like how do you define that? And so this next part will give you a list of how to kind of define that for yourself and give you a checklist of things.
So we've kind of discussed this in another video. So we had a special guest on, I believe it's going to be a future video, who was a therapist. She came on and we did discuss like, what is the definition of a cult? And there really isn't a solid definition. And we all kind of agreed it just is kind of like certain things would definitely be a cult and other things are like, meh. But we discussed like the, Waco cult and all that kind of stuff. Everybody thinks when you think of cult is some kind of dangerous compound where people's lives are in danger and, militia or something,
Yeah. So really it's about whether is it abusive to you?
Right.
And this would also help you to determine that.
All right. So these are some of the things that we either started to see when we were leaving. And see, I left and then kind of got into the IFB, which I would consider a same Kool-Aid, different flavor. And so it was years from the time that I had left IBLP that I recognized both of those things as a religious cult. So, but these are some of the things that we started to see and then really clearly saw once we were removed from it.
And for me, I got out of the cult itself, but I had not had time to really work on who I was as a person before I landed in an abusive relationship. So I didn't go to another religious cult or institution. It was a relationship that was abusive.
So here are some questions that you can ask yourself if you're not sure if you are in a safe group, organization, community, right? Am I in danger? Am I in physical danger? Or am I in danger of my reputation being destroyed? And in our cult, it wasn't really a danger of us destroying our reputation because we were separating ourselves as Christians. And so we felt like we were preserving our reputation by choosing to do the right thing. So I don't think that was ever anything in ours. Did people have a lesser opinion of our reputation once we were involved in it? Absolutely. Did we care? Not at all. We thought we were doing the right thing and being an amazing people, and they were just misinformed. So
am I being forced to pay money in order to become spiritually enlightened?
Mhm.
So within the IBLP ATI cult, that you had to pay for everything. You had to pay to serve them, serve with
Yeah.
their stuff. You had to pay to go to their conferences. You had to pay for their books. If you were a student staff, you still paid to go do whatever they wanted you to, however they wanted you to serve at their, what are those called? I'm pulling a blank. Training centers.
Thank
Training
you, training centers.
Yes. Yes. So hard labor, you can pay us to go
Mhm.
work, do our hard labor for the good of the realm.
Organization.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It was all like, and it's, I mean, I get like if you're doing something that is going to train you and school you, like
Mhm.
colleges, right?
Yeah.
You pay to go to college. It's not offered for free, but they're also not claiming to fulfill your life spiritually either. So to me, that's so hard because if you have an organization and you're offering a service, it's very hard to offer services with staff with no income, right? And just depend solely on donations. So, how would an ethical organization support itself to be able to have paid staff, which they never paid anybody, but that's beside the point? Like, how would you do it differently, right? To where it would be more ethical. And I've racked my brain about that for so long. Like, I don't know. I mean, you can only operate to the level of donations that you get if you want to do it ethically, is from what I see. Kind
Yeah.
of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I think the key here in that question is, are you being forced
True.
to pay?
Right. Like ATI, you couldn't be in it unless you paid for basically a membership, right?
Yes.
So
So it was a membership thing. And you
yeah.
paid for the conferences, which was a training. So that would be like a learning thing. You were getting something
Mhm.
out of it. So you're paying. I understand that. What I didn't like was that you had to pay to go serve.
Right.
But also there was an undercurrent of, the more you served, the more spiritual you were.
True.
So if you were basically buying spirituality by being able to go and serve
You're
in their
right.
places. And so
Good point.
and it also, there was a hierarchy to that. So we
Mhm.
were a low income family, and there were other families that had more resources, and
Mhm.
so their kids were able to go and do more and
Oh,
and be
right.
able to serve more or do more programs, or they were higher up, they were able to be in more leadership roles because the more experience you had in those of serving in
Right.
those children's institutes or whatever it was that you
The
did,
more money you paid,
the more noticed you were. The more money you paid, the more noticed you were, the
Mhm.
higher you moved up in leadership, and you were
Yeah.
able to do more service. So that was always my frustration as a young teenager, was I saw that inequity, and I was like, but I want to serve, I want to go and do it, but I can't because I don't have enough money.
Right, which is
And
very limiting to the people you are trying to reach. Like, you can't do this unless you are well off. Like, that sucks.
yes, yeah, and there was
Exclusive.
all kind. It was exclusive, but there were all kinds of other
Yeah.
things to that, and they did pay their staff at headquarters a very small amount.
Yeah.
Very small amount. Sometimes if you got in with the right people and you were there long enough, like 2 years, which is a long time at headquarters.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So here's the next one to consider is, have I been shamed for thinking differently? And I mean, this cult was very good at making you feel shame for
Mhm.
even like not doing the new guru thing that Mr. Gothard deemed as coming from God, like the daily Ramas. And
Yeah. There was a new thing every month. He
Mhm.
would be enlightened all the time.
Yeah, because how can you get more money out of people if the thing is the same thing being repeated over and over and over again? All right. So the next
The
one.
next one is, have I been equipped with the tools to research my own beliefs, or are there only a few chosen few individuals who are authorized to give me information?
That's a big one.
So are you allowed to think for yourself?
Right.
Or do you have to take their word for it? So, and
Yeah.
are you being given tools to look at what you think? Like,
You know what I noticed? Okay, so a while ago, I went back and watched the first video of the basic seminar. Super triggering. Don't recommend.
mhm.
0 out of 1,000. Do
Yeah.
not recommend. And so one of the things is they're like, well, you can check this. They will say it. You can check this. I've got this information. I've done the research. And you can check me. Believe me. Like, trust me, bro. I've done the research, is what he's basically saying. And that actually discourages you from going and doing your own research, because you're like, well, he spent all that time researching it. I don't have time to do that. I'm going to trust him, bro.
Yeah. Well, and you're drinking it from a
Fire hose.
Fire hose. You don't have time, and you're too tired after that week.
Right. And then even when you're in it for years, all of the information is coming from one source.
Yeah.
So it's just, you're like, oh, well, yeah, he was right, because look, he's written this, same person has written this about, this, and it reiterates what he taught here. So it must be true, but you're not getting it from different sources. So it's all from one source, or a few select sources that agree with him. So the other thing to consider, we kind of talked about this already, is there a ranking system? Am I being taught that I am somehow lesser than other individuals? And it's not blatantly taught, right? Like, it's just inferred, and you feel the judgment and you feel the classism when you are involved in these kinds of organizations. Like, who the favorites are. Like, it was well known that Bill Gothard surrounded himself with young teenage or young adult women with certain features. Like, it was known, and it was a joke, and nobody was like, well, this is odd.
Yeah.
We should look into this.
Didn't raise a flag for people. I don't know why.
I think it raised many flags, but they just could not acknowledge it, because acknowledging it also acknowledged that they were involved in something that was led by a disgusting person with that was abusive. Like, I am involved in something that is abusive, and parents would have to be like, well, I'm abusing my children too, because I'm using his teachings. It's a very hard pill to swallow, to accept that what you are seeing is true, because it makes you look into the mirror and reflect on yourself.
He was more of a guru. So the guru, every parent that ever heard that come out of my mouth, or adult that was in the cult as an adult, would say Mr. Gothard wouldn't do anything like that. He was just above reproach.
Right.
There was just no doubt in anyone's mind that he couldn't possibly mean evil toward anyone. It was just imagined or whatever like that. Even though all the young people knew. Yeah. Like, and it was a joke within us, within our group.
Yeah.
But the parents, he couldn't possibly do anything evil. So,
All right. So the next one.
Is my individuality unappreciated or unwelcomed? So are you being forced or encouraged to conform to their model
belief system of what you should be? And, like we've talked about, in the Christian fundamentalism, girls are basically raised up to be servants of their fathers and then to their husbands, and submissive and not question authority. So, like, if I had a problem with that and I approached a leader or my authority, and they're like, silence you and brush you off, and I don't want to talk about it, that would be,
go ahead.
That would be just an example of you're not able to express anything that's different than the group think.
Yeah. And that could be hair, that could be clothing, that could be your own individual thoughts, that could be, it could be a whole realm of things.
Absolutely. So if you have answered yes to any of these questions, you may want to carefully consider the religious group into which you belong. So when I was reading this, it made me think of my grandmother, and she was very Catholic. Most of my family was, and she was very devout, and she was one of the best examples I had of someone who lived their faith fully and believed and showed the love of Jesus in my life. Like, hands down, loved everyone, would do anything for anybody, served, gave, was just a selfless person. And I loved her so much. And when my grandfather died, there was one day we were at her house and she was like filling out something. I'm like, oh, what you filling out? It's a prayer card for my grandfather, which also had a donation amount so that he could be prayed for by the priest at mass. So so his soul could be prayed for to go to make sure he got to heaven. That was like, wait, what? Like, you have to pay to get your dead husband prayed for. Like, they wouldn't just do it because you asked? That's crazy. No wonder the Catholic Church is rich.
Yeah.
Pay for your soul to get to heaven after all of your family can pay for us to pray for them. That's just nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So that's just kind of, I guess, a wrap up of a way to combine all of the things that we talked about in the abuses and specifically talk about how it could be portrayed or be, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
I don't know
Portrayed,
either.
Manifest.
Yeah, how it can look in an organization
Mm-hmm.
that is promoting spiritual well-being, but also acting abusively. So just be careful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Just some things to think about.
correct. The other thing I was thinking is tithing in regular churches, right? Like, so the Baptist religion, they're big on tithing your 10%. And there's a lot of pressure that they put on families to give their 10%. And it's always preached on constantly about, giving the first fruits, and it's very coercive in the way that they present it, instead of, if you have it, this would help us reach more people, right? Instead of it being like, well, this is what you should do if you're a good spiritual person. If you love God enough, you give God your money, which is just so weird to me. Now, out of it, it's just like, wow, like that was really like a lot of pressure, And as a single mom, I felt it, because it was like, well, I can either feed my children or pay a tithe.
Yes. Yeah. Churches do handle that. It is ill handled.
Yes.
Quite often.
Yes.
Not
absolutely.
all, but quite often.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So I think that wraps that topic up. Thank you for joining this podcast. And we hope that you will join our next podcast. And don't forget to please subscribe, share, leave a review if you're listening to the audio. We really appreciate any feedback that you give us. We don't really care if it's negative. We like interacting with people. So, you can challenge us. We may not respond to you, but go ahead and leave your opinion. So, again, thank you for joining us in this podcast. We hope that you will join us in our next podcast. And
come join the rebellion.
all right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.